What if I told you one day this was going to zero and it was going to go pretty soon? Would you rush out and buy all the gold and silver? It seems to be what is happening right now in this world. Lots of people fearing for that dollar, and so they go out and they buy silver and gold to protect themselves, and that's fine. But it's actually a really poor investment choice if this stuff doesn't actually disappear. So, what are the alternatives? And here's a little thing to think about. If this really is going to start to disappear, perhaps the silver and gold that you've got ain't going to help you that much. Maybe we should become backyard bean stackers. Hello everybody, Backyard Bullion here, and a warm welcome to you all joining me for another precious metal ramble. One of the biggest arguments that I've always heard about gold and silver and how they are the best thing that you can possibly have and buy and hold is that they are a protection against the value of currencies. We all know that currencies are going through quite a lot of inflation right now, and the money in our pockets is buying us less. But when you look back at historical prices of silver, for example, we've seen, of course, much higher highs than the recent highs we've seen on silver. Looking back at gold, we haven't seen necessarily massive highs on gold in the past, and arguably right now gold is at an all-time high. But when you compare it back to the ratios of the 1980s, the 1960s, 50s, all the way back to say the 1900s, you get to really appreciate how awful these are as investments. Now, before you run away and dislike this video as a hardcore silver and gold stacker, just have a think about what I'm trying to say here. I'm not bashing gold and silver. There is a place for them in any portfolio. But if you have a larger wealth portfolio than others, it might be worth thinking about that balance, that build-up, that setup of gold and silver within that stack. Don't just go all in on anything, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So I'm going to go on a bit of a tangential ramble now about this whole situation that silver and gold might actually be pretty poor assets to hold. And what are the alternatives? I'm not giving financial advice. I'm just a guy who likes to talk about shiny things here on YouTube. And maybe, just maybe, you might learn something if all you can think about is the only thing to buy in the world is silver. Have you thought about these other things? That's the question I would ask you. And it would be great to hear from you down in that comment section. I might be wrong. And if I am wrong and you disagree with me, then let me know. It would be great to hear from you down below. And also don't forget to hit the like button too. So while I struggle to crack open this unicorn capsule, let's start with this big argument that back in 1920, let's call it, I don't know the exact dates, gold was a $20 an ounce commodity. And if you bought a bunch of gold at $20 an ounce and held it to now, you'd have 100 times up your investment. Well, yes, you would have done. But in this little YouTube short clip that I saw, Warren Buffett made a very good point that the Dow Jones index in around 1920, I don't remember the exact date he quoted, was around 60. And what is it now? Tens of thousands. And you do the simple maths ratio and you think to yourself, yeah, there's a lot more to be had there. Now, of course, with stocks and shares and markets, there have been dips and dives and losses, and things have gone to zero and then new things have come. You have to actively manage a lot of things to get there. And that's where Warren Buffett was saying that something like just a simple tracker index fund, something that's not as risky, will have given you far more in value than a gold coin would have done in those 100 years. So this new world we live in, it's the old world that's got us all confused. And a lot of people go back in time and they say, but gold is the thing of kings, queens and empires. It's what they used to transport their wealth through time. Well, they did, but we as a society, as a human civilization, have, in my humble opinion, moved well beyond that scope and that world now. And of course we have digital currencies and money on screens in bank accounts and assets, and the promise of money and goods to be paid upon demand. This feeling of some that system is fundamentally flawed is not wrong. There are problems with it, and I will definitely admit to that. And that's one of the reasons why I have gold and silver within my investment portfolio and stack, and just I have fears about the future of the monetary system for sure. But at the same time, that system well outperforms gold and silver over a chosen period, if you can cherry pick your data, you will find it outperforms gold and silver every time. Where gold and silver really shine, no pun intended, is when you get to choose the opportune moments for example, selling. If you bought at those highs and you're waiting for your silver to get to those highs again, then you're stuck and you don't get anything along the way. If you buy a stock and it is at a high and then it drops in value and you don't sell it, there's a good chance that the type of stock that you buy, depends on what you buy of course, could pay you dividends along the way, could get you marginal bits of income along the way. And goodness knows I've picked some winners in the past, but I've also picked some absolute stonking, horrible, bad stocks that have gone particularly south. But if you are able to hold for a long period of time, and if you're not like a day trader and looking for the next quick fix and you don't need that capital to be released immediately, then you can sit back. And sometimes that income that you get over time will actually pay for those capital losses, so to speak. Now, another little point that Warren Buffett made in his video was about the direct devaluation of our currencies, which is one of the big things why people like silver and gold. You know, it keeps the buying power supposedly out of this type of money. I love how I've got these two little $1 notes. They've been in my wallet, by the way, for like, 25 years now. Yeah, just about that, when I first went to America. And I've carried them ever since. Love them. Anyway, the point is these, you know, people are worried about these and their disappearance. But at the end of the day, whether this is a 1 or a 10, it's still going to get you the things that you need in this world. And Warren Buffett made a very good point that, you know, you'll still be able to buy. It's all relative, isn't it? Like, people talk about, you know, a loaf of bread being worth $1,000 because the price of the currency that they're in is, you know, completely shot. And that's totally true. And that is what might happen in the future with dollars. And that will then price silver and gold at extortionate highs of price points. But you're still getting a loaf of bread for your money. And the same ratio, you'll still be able to buy, you know, tank of gas. The question is whether you'll be able to, because there could be a calamitous, apocalyptic style scenario of civil wars. But the point is, you'd still be able to buy the same amount of stuff. It's just about the wealth from before that happens to after that happens. And that's not always practical with the paper notes that we've got here, because they are fixed. They have this $1 denomination. You can't just draw a zero on it and move on and say that's a $10 note. So that's the problem that we have with this stuff. It doesn't stand up to the fast-paced over-time inflation that happens. And one might argue as well that, for example, silver doesn't really do that right now. We've seen huge inflation over the last couple of years, and silver is not at that point that it should be, arguably. Like, it's undervalued, certainly. Why is that? I'm not a conspiracy theorist, and I don't believe that there is a conspiracy to keep silver low, to keep the money out of the masses' hands. But there is definitely, I think, room for silver to grow in terms of this market. But it's just a capital asset. It's just something you buy, and then one day you hope it will be worth more than it was when you bought it. And that's not always necessarily as easy to do. And the problem with it is that it's not practical over time. You could, theoretically, if currencies were going to the brown place, trying not to swear on YouTube and get YouTube angry with me, if things are going to the brown place, there is nothing saying that you couldn't buy 10,000 cans of beans and sell them in 3 weeks' time when your currency's completely collapsed. Or you could eat the beans and survive. So there is, in my opinion, no fundamental difference between a gold coin, a silver bar, and a tin of beans. Now, the obvious thing here is that a tin of beans is not going to be, let's call it a very small tin of beans, and it's the same size as this. It's not going to be worth as much money. So you're going to have to buy an awful lot of tins of beans to transport that wealth through time. But theoretically, other assets are very much going to be in demand and can be used. They are for, we could look at, for example, oil or energy production, solar panels. Yes, I know there is silver in solar panels, and that could be an important thing, but a fully functional working solar panel is going to be far more valuable than just a lump of non-usable silver in those types of situations where we have this like complete absolutely. I would, if I didn't love them so much, I would rip these up and say that's it, they're done. It's not going to help you at all. Medicines, things that don't expire, assets, a house, goodness me, somewhere to actually live. If you have the means to buy gold and silver, then the question I have for you is perhaps think about getting on the property ladder, because as Warren Buffett said, there was like a series of little shorts I watched on it. It was fascinating. He said he would much rather have 100 acres of land in the middle of nowhere than a stack of gold and silver. And I completely agree. If you've got a little place of this world that you can call home, granted it doesn't have to be a couple of 100 acres, but if you've just got a house, a home, a garden, somewhere that you can call home, then that is, in my opinion, worth far more than any kind of silver or gold coin. Ultimately, silver and gold, we have this sort of historical connection to it, and I do personally think that history, that greed, that sort of green-eyed monster of silver and gold being this thing that we fight wars over and that we want and need, the greed over it, has fueled this modern sort of stacking mentality of keeping that real wealth, and it's then been skewed against this modern world that we live in. And I don't like it. I don't like the conspiracy theory side of silver stacking and gold stacking. That said, I do want to round this video out by saying that I still do think there is a place in a portfolio for silver and gold. What I think was telling was that Warren Buffett said, again, I'm quoting these shorts all out of context, I know, but Warren Buffett said that he would consider gold and silver if he didn't have as much money as he does. So I think what he's saying there is that there is arguments to be had for larger budgeted individuals and institutions to ignore gold and silver because they are not going to yield what is expected of them over time. And I think it's quite fairly obvious that Warren Buffett just doesn't think the world's going to end, that currencies are going to end. So I've talked a bit in this video about, if currencies do hyperinflate and go away to nothing, this stuff here, it could well go south, it could well devalue, but will it go the way of the Zimbabwean dollar or the Venezuelan bolivar, or as I called it, the Bolivia in one of my most watched ever videos, and I still to this day get comments going, "These pronouncing the currency wrong." Will it go to zero? Will it go to hyperinflation? Will we one day see a $1 trillion banknote like we did for Zimbabwe? No, in my opinion, we're not going to see that. The US is too big of an economy and super global power. It's just not going to happen. Certainly in our lifetime. There could be other factors that cause it. Who knows where things will be in terms of global peace and stability and the like. It's possible. It's possible one day. But I tell you what, I'd rather have 1,000 cans of beans to live on for a year than it would be, goodness me, it would be a smelly backyard bullion household. But I would be able to survive rather than just keeping myself warm by snuggling my silver bars at night time. So have a think about that. I think it's interesting. And, I'm not here to belittle silver stackers who think that things will collapse and go to the moon. Tell me why you think that, because it's not happened yet, and we've been through very, very, very big changes in the world with the pandemic, coronavirus, inflation, the war in Ukraine that has fueled huge, huge shortages of food and energy and everything else that's going on. I just can't see it happening. I really can't. So let me know your thoughts down in that comment section. Otherwise, that is it from me. We'll see you next time. Thank you to any of my backyard bullion ramblers who have been listening all this way on my tangential rants. It's always great to hear from you. Thank you. We'll see you next time. As always, please make sure that you like, share, comment, and subscribe for more.